Hello everybody, welcome to another Yellow Chair devotional. We have been exploring God and science. We've been doing a science experiment here in my kitchen every single day, and then looking in our Bibles, seeing what lessons we can learn from God, the master scientist. All right, so we'll see how this one turns out. That's the fun thing about science, is you really never know how it's gonna work. But first, let's turn in our Bibles. Yesterday we saw Noah. We saw Noah, and we saw that God put the rainbow in the sky as a promise. And what type of commitment, what type of promise was it? He was never going to flood the whole earth again. It was his promise that he was committed to Noah and his family. He was committed to people, saying, I love you. I am going to take care of you. I'm not going to destroy with a flood again. And so people could see the rainbow in the sky and remember. God would see that rainbow that he would place there, and it would be a reminder. I'm committed. I love my people. But what happens when we forget that? Genesis chapter 11. Grab your Bibles and turn with me to Genesis chapter 11. We're going to be at verse 1, right at the beginning of Genesis 11. And time has gone by. Time has gone by. Abraham's sons have had sons who've had sons who've had sons. There's way more people on the earth again. And they start forgetting about God's promises. They start trying to do it their way. Have you ever noticed that with yourself? Where you try and take control and do something your way? Does that work out most of the time? Oh, we're meant to team. We're meant to follow God's instructions. We're meant to maybe obey some grown-ups who might know a little bit more than we think, right? Man, we want to take that wisdom that's around us, especially the wisdom that we learn from God in his word. And so let's see what happens in Genesis chapter 11 when people start doing it their way. This is Genesis 11, verse 1. At this time, the whole world spoke one language. Everyone used the same words. As people moved from the east, they found a plain in the land of Babylonia. They settled there to live. They said to each other, let's make bricks and bake them to make them hard. So they used bricks instead of stone and tar instead of mortar. Then they said to each other, let's build for ourselves a city and a tower. And let's make the top of the tower reach high into the sky. We will become famous. If we do this, we will not be scattered over all the earth. The Lord came down to see the city and the tower that the people had built, and the Lord said, now these people are united. They all speak the same language. This is only the beginning of what they will do. They'll be able to do anything they want. Come, let us go down and confuse their language. Then they will not be able to understand each other. So the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is where the Lord confused the language of the whole world. So the place is called Babel. So the Lord caused them to spread out from there over all the whole world. Now, why do you think God confused their languages? Didn't it sound like maybe the people were doing something okay here in verse 6 where God says, the people are united? Well, isn't unity a good thing? Why were they being united? Why was that a bad thing? Well, what had happened before Noah and the flood? Had the people just grown so evil because they weren't listening to God? They weren't worshiping and following God's ways. They weren't following God's instructions. Oh, we'll see more of that tomorrow, actually, I believe. What happens when we don't follow God's instructions and God goes, if all these people stay in this town, in this city that they're building, it's going to become trouble. It's going to be trouble because someone's going to want to be the best. Right? We're always competing. Someone's going to want to be the best and want to be in charge. And when that happens, they forget about God being in charge, right? Now, God's instructions to Adam and Eve at the very beginning of time was he wanted them to be fruitful and multiply. And he told them, spread out. The world is yours. Go, multiply, rule, spread out. And what did the people say here? Let's all build a city and stay together. We will become famous with our tower, and if we do this, we will not be scattered. that following God's original plan for man? No. And so a disruption is coming. A disruption is coming. So we're going to use some science here to build our own type of tower. And so let me move the camera down so you can see my workplace here. Now this is what we're going to call a density tower. We talked about density when we did the shaving cream clouds on top of our water, but density basically means how much substance is packed into a volume. So each liquid has different density. And sometimes we think of density like weight, like, oh, this is heavy. Or if I think about honey, oh, well, it moves really slow. But this density actually is its own measurement. It's its own measurement of how much of a substance is packed in. And we're gonna make a density tower here in my glass. So you could use a jar, you could use a glass pitcher or a vase, but we don't wanna waste a lot of ingredients here. So I'm using kind of a skinny glass here that we can look at, because we wanna be able to see how this works. So we're gonna start with what we're gonna say is probably our densest ingredient, which is honey. All right, and maybe we go, oh, well, it's very sticky, it moves pretty slow. We would say that we would use the word viscosity. So I'm just gonna squirt some honey in. That's enough, I don't wanna waste. And here we've got our first layer of our density tower. Which of these do you think would come next? What do you think? Well, look at the density of maybe my corn syrup. I'm gonna take some corn syrup here. I'm gonna squeeze some in. Now I wanna go slow because if I don't want them to mix, I want them to layer like a tower. So I'm gonna go slow here and see if I can keep them from mixing too much. Now my corn syrup is kind of a clear color, so we're not gonna see it as easily, but we can kind of see that it's not as yellow up there in that level, is it? Now, what's next? Now, if we were going just off of whether something is very viscous, right? Look at that. Whether it's really soupy, I would think maybe oil, because oil kind of goes like that, but actually, I think we need to take some milk here. Now I've got some cow's milk. One thing that's so much fun about science is we get to experiment and try all sorts of different things. I don't know about soy milk or almond milk or oat milk or coconut milk or rice milk or whatever other milk there might be. And I don't know what would be the difference between 1% milk and 2% or skim or whole. Those are what we would call the different variables in our science experiment that we could change up and see what happens. So I'm gonna pour this so that it kind of trickles alongside the cup so that it doesn't mix too bad, because I don't want it to mix. There we go. I put a little too much there, but see how it's just sitting on top? Now maybe you've made spaghetti or something where you're boiling some water on the stove, and maybe you put a little bit of oil into the water, and the oil, right, does it glob all up and just float? It doesn't mix in, right? Because it's a different density. And that's what we're seeing in our tower here. Now, what do you think should I add next? I'm thinking some soap. This is just some dish soap. All right, so I'm gonna squirt some soap on here. Now there's all sorts of different ingredients we could use, lots of different ingredients. And so there's a lot of different ways to make our density tower, and this is just one way. We can experiment with all of the different ingredients in our home and see how do they layer up, which one's more dense or less dense. But there, look at that. They're just stacking up. Look at our tower going. Now, I'm gonna do some water next. Now, this is my water, but I put a couple drops of food coloring in it just so we could see it in our tower. And what happens when we mix water with soap? Oh, well, it gets soapy, right? So I'm actually going to dribble my water in with a dropper here so that we don't end up with soap bubbles. Now, why do you think our soap is less dense than milk? Why do you think that is? Well, Maybe is it because while soap looks pretty sticky, it's got a lot of sud potential, right? We can take soap and we can suds it up with our hands or with water, and then it bubbles, right? We get all the bubbles. And so that means that there's air in our soap, making it less dense so that it floats on top. All right, so now I've got a nice little initial layer. Now I'm gonna dribble it down the side like I did with my milk. There we go. Well, a little bit of it trickled through, but we did pretty good. So there's my water on top of my soap, on top of my milk, on top of my corn syrup, on top of my honey. Finally, I've got some oil. And we've talked about how oil will float on top of water. So let's see if it'll do it now. So here's some vegetable oil. Here's some vegetable oil. Putting it in nice and slow. Trying not to mix them too bad. And there it goes, it's floating on top. Now I also have another type of oil here just to see what the difference might be. And I don't know that we're really gonna be able to tell, but I was interested to see, was this one gonna layer on top or on the bottom? All right, so there's our oils floating on top of our little skinny thing of blue water, on top of our soap, on top of our milk, on top of our corn syrup, on top of our honey. Now, what about some objects? Where do you think they'll land? I've got a screw here. I'm gonna throw my screw in and see where it goes. Oh, look at that. Slow motion as it makes its way all the way down to the bottom. What about a dice or a die from playing a game? All right, takes up more space, but it's not as heavy as my screw. Where do we think it might land? So I'm just gonna put in here, I'll hold this up so we can watch. Where do we think it's gonna land? Oh, look at it, just suspended there. It won't go any lower than that. That's its spot. That's its spot. What about a popcorn kernel? I've got a popcorn kernel here. Where do I think that's gonna go? Well, let's see. It might hide in the milk. I don't know. Where's it gonna go? Oh, I think it's hiding in the milk. We can't really see where it is. I've also got a pinto bean because I wanted to compare it to the popcorn seed, popcorn kernel. So I'm gonna put that in and it settled into my soap. We can't see it, but I saw it land in my soap. What about a pine cone? Just a little itty bitty pine cone. Well, let's put it in and see where it goes. Oh, it's just gonna float right there on top. Oh, maybe not, because it's starting to get submerged. Where is it gonna end up? It's gonna keep going. So you can find all sorts of random objects in your house that you can test in your density tower. And so that one has pretty much settled on my water. That one settled on my water. And finally, I've got a piece of cork. And if you've used cork before, I think we know that cork is so light, it's just gonna float up there. It's just gonna float. But look at all of our objects suspended because of density, because of that. Now, at the Tower of Babel, we know that God disrupted the tower. And he did that by doing what? He disrupted their language, their communication. So you don't have to do this, but I have an Alka-Seltzer tablet here. Got an Alka-Seltzer tablet, and we're gonna see what happens when it releases a lot of oxygen bubbles and disrupts things. So we're just gonna watch and see what it does. It might take a little bit of time here, but watch, a disruption's gonna take place here eventually. Because what's so crazy is that, oh, slowly but surely, what's so crazy is when we think about their communication being disrupted by God. Well, let me move this up so that I can look at you again. One of the things that I think of, see, we're starting to, our Alka-Seltzer's tablet's starting to go. We're getting some bubbles here. So I'm just gonna hold this and you can watch as we wrap up. God disrupted their ability to communicate with each other. They were building their city, building their tower specifically, right? They had all those instructions. We're going to do it this way, and then we won't be scattered. And then they were probably communicating really well because the Bible told us, God said, now the people are united, right? They were communicating well. They were working together like a team, but God was worried because he's so all-knowing. He knew that was going to get him in trouble, that they were going to end up probably not following him, even though they could still see the rainbow in the sky and be reminded of him. He just knew that this was a recipe for trouble. Just like our Alka-Seltzer is starting to bubble things and mix all of our layers up with its releasing of oxygen. It's just making a fizzy mess here. And so he scattered them through their languages. Like the Bible said, so the Lord caused them to spread out from there over all of the world. And that's why we still have so many different languages today, isn't it? Because God said, I want you guys spread out. I don't want you guys competing for who's the best and then forgetting about me, God, who is the ultimate best, right? When we get so busy trying to get in power, trying to control, trying to do things our way, we don't think about doing things God's way, do we? So let's remember from the Tower of Babel and our density tower here, what it is when maybe God disrupts things. Usually, I would almost say that always, God disrupts things for good. He disrupts things in our lives sometimes, but he's doing it because he sees the big picture and he has an amazing plan. He doesn't want us to get in the way of ourselves. He's going to disrupt. He's going to sometimes mess up the things we were doing. Just say, hey, will you remember me, my instructions, that I'm here for you, that I am team you? God goes, trust in me. Remember the rainbow. Remember my promises. I'm going to take care of you. Just trust in me. Follow me, and everything will be okay. All right? So let's say a prayer and close our time. Dear God, we're so thankful for the lessons we can learn in science. We're thankful that, like the Tower of Babel, sometimes we need a little disruption in our lives because it reminds us to keep our eyes fixed on you. You're the one who's in charge. You see it all. You know the end from the beginning, yet you love us and you care about the day-to-day things that happen in our lives. We're so thankful that you care and we're thankful for your love. In your name, amen. All right. Well, here's the result of our density tower and a little bit of disruption along the way. Think about that the next time maybe something doesn't go the way you wanted, or something happens that just, what's going on? Maybe step back and go, God, are you disrupting things to remind me to focus on you? Maybe spend some time talking to God about the disruptions, the interruptions, the things that happen in your life that you don't understand. We take those to God and we remember that he is the one who is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and he loves you and he's taking care of all of it. I'll see you next time.